The world of Teyvat is teeming with life and beauty. From Mondstadt's rolling hills and Liwei's staggering mountains, the shores of Inazuma and the jungles of Sumeru. These nations would have been left to ruins from otherworldly monsters, if not for the Archon. 7 gods who fought in the Archon War 2,000 years ago. Their powers and authority over the elements come from a direct connection to the heavenly principles through their genosis. They, or their descendants, now watch over their respective nations for when the next world-ending threat comes their way. Genshin Impact! Genshin Impact has a lot of characters to play as, metacraft, read lore for, buy merch of, and lose your life savings gambling to get. It's a lovely problem to have. And I'm covering Genshin not because I'm trying to follow clout, but because I got paid by Hoyoverse like so many storytime YouTubers. It's because I genuinely like the game. And also I am paying them. It's sunk cost fallacy. But you know who is paying me? The dungeon coach, sort of, kind of, not really, no. Let me just do this shill first. DC20 is a TTRPG currently in beta created by the YouTuber Dungeon Coach, hence the name of the game. The game promises faster, more engaging combat, more meaningful choices, and varied and viable character customization. So click the affiliate link in the description below and purchase DC20. And you'll be financially supporting me, because I'm not getting paid any other way. Today, in our untitled DC20 character building video series, we're going to try our best to build the first 4 of the 7 Archons from Genshin Impact up to level 4. I say try our best because DC20 has fire, cold, and lightning damage, while Genshin has those and 4 other elements that don't easily have damage type represented. It would be impossible without homebrewing, if not for 0.10 to finally be out.
And there was much rejoicing.
However, it was announced that 0.10.5 will be coming out soonish and will contain the remaining spells, and additional spells will be added for the full release. So if they add a spell that would be identical to one of these characters' abilities, I guess I'll add a pin comment, but we will go with what we got. The nation of Mondstadt was cold and barren, but became beautiful and fertile, and as free as the wind, thanks to their god, Barbados. What was once a mere wind spirit ascended to godhood through the faith of the people rebelling against the old oppressive god of storms. But now, thousands of years later, he takes the form of a traveling bard unbeknownst to the people who now run Mondstadt as they see fit. This is Venti. This bard, known for his soliloquies, drinking out bars, amazing crowd grouping, and getting past CCP censorship laws that forbid feminine men. That's true, look it up. He is the first Archon players meet, so it was unique and subversive to have him be a bard, a historically undervalued career in history and fantasy. Of course, if you come from D&D, you're probably asking, "Oh, I'm sorry, my multi-class Valor Bard's Conjure Minor Elemental Cheese Grater Technique free errata is not powerful enough for you?" Yeah, in a world without written word, bards were the ones that got to write history and become very influential in the Celtic Age. And it's that tradition that influenced the creation of wizards in fantasy. It's their world-bending abilities with words that reflect in D&D's bards, and DC20 bards are no different.
Sure, I'll play you another tune, but it'll cost you an apple.
So we're picking the bard class. Let's do ancestries next. As mentioned, Venti used to be an elemental spirit of the wind, but we don't have elemental born as an ancestry. Maybe in the future though. Instead, I picked angel born, which... What? What are you looking at me like that? Did I do an Angelborn Bard last video? Yes? Well, this will be different, because it's 0.10, and we have enough choices to make Venti completely different. Like, we don't have to have any human traits, and we can still pick a different subclass. Radiant Resistance will give him Radiant Resistance. Celestial Magic is a great option so that he can get a divine spell that's not normally available to bards, and we can use it with a reduced mana cost once per day. I'm also getting Glide Speed. Admittedly, everyone in Teyvat should have a glide speed provided to them by the Wind Glider, which could be a magic item, but why is glide speed not an option in the updated magic items guide? It should have like 2 magic item property points since the ability to fly is 6, just like Ancestry traits value, and a limited use fly is 3 points. Divine Glow will let him skip learning the light cantrip, and just to save some time to go back to talk Ancestry traits at level 4, we're going to give him 2 points right now. How about Mana Increase, original I know, and Angelic Insight, which can give him a once per long rest advantage on insight checks to see if someone is lying. Guess what? His prime is Charisma, his dumb stat is Might. Shocker, I know. We'll then give him 2 Intelligence and 1 Agility. If he was any faster or stronger, he might have been able to dodge or withstand this attack. Get owned. Oh, the same with Ancestry points. We're going to give him that attribute point from level 3 and put it right into Intelligence. He doesn't need to beat the initiative check. Skills? Thanks to Remarkable Repertoire, he gets 2 more skill points on top of the 7 he would have at level 1, and then 2 more at level 3. Just give him everything but Athletics, Intimidation, and Stealth? Yeah, he needed the Traveler's help to steal the Holy Lyre der Himmel. The hero? We can then take 1 point to convert into trade points for 6 points again at level 3. Musician, theater, illustrator, cryptography, history, and brewing. Yeah, he might not make alcohol, but after a millennia of consuming it, he should have a refined palate. Fount of Inspiration is the bard's first feature, and I will be quick. The help action is a universal action anyone can take that can give an ally a d8 help die. There are some limitations, but this feature allows him to use the help action to assist in attack checks of his allies that are 10 spaces away, rather than 1 space near the ally or target. He can also use the help action as a reaction, so that rather than waiting on his turn, he can interrupt the player to help. Remember that using this feature more than once per round will give you a penalty that will reduce the size of your dice. Let's pause from class features to discuss spell lists. Each spell casting class gets a list that determines what spell they can learn through leveling up. Wizards get spells from the arcane spell source. Clerks get divine, druids get primal, sorcerers get to pick a source, warlocks get to pick 3 spell schools, and spellblades get to pick 2 spell schools while also getting all the spells with the weapon and ward spell tag. Bards get the School of Enchantment and spells with the spell tag Embolden for buffing stuff, Enfeeble for nerfing stuff, Healing, Illusion, and Sound. Thanks to Calladio's spreadsheet, I have found bards have 54 spells, and most of them are psychic and acid. Your songs melt people, I guess. So, how many of these spells have the air spell tag, the ones for our animal god? 2. The first is Fly. Wow! Venti's elemental skill lets him fly upwards a bit, and he has given the Traveler the ability to fly in scripted scenes. So this works great. Wait, what's the mana cost? Oh! So there is a limit to how much mana you can spend on one spell, and it is equal to half your level, rounded up. Meaning he can only cast this spell at level 5 or higher. Please wait for us. The second spell is thankfully better. Wind Blessing. Imbue a target with wind for 1 minute, or 5 rounds. On a successful DC15 check, the target's speed and jump distance is increased by 3. That's close to flying. Venti can imbue himself to jump higher, and then use the glide speed to get around faster.
Wouldn't gliding be faster?
But you can also spend 2 action points to end the spell and make a spell check versus the might save of each target within 1 space of the imbued target to push them horizontally 1 space. You can also spend 1 MP to increase the distance by 1 space. Okay, so that's knockback. That's what we wanted. We'll have to take this spell because it's the only one. We do still get 4 spells at level 1. We can give him Bless, but it has been nerfed significantly in this beta and now overlaps significantly with Fount of Inspiration and Bardic Performance, which you'll be getting at level 2. So we'll take Hex instead. This spell curses the target that fails their Charisma save with a vulnerability of 1 to a damage type of your choice. That lasts for 1 minute or until a successful Charisma save or the curse is removed. In Genshin, this is basically like reducing the resistance to an element, which he can do if he has the Verdescent Vrenver artifact set equipped. This has been busted since day 1 and is practically mandatory for all Anemo users. After that, we can pick up Illusionary Image and Message. Illusionary Image is for casting an image of something, anything, and having a creature believe it's there. A creature can make a check to figure out if it is fake, or they can just interact with it, and they'll discover if it's fake. Venti does this illusionary trick. Instead of fixing the Lyre of Himmel the hero, he casts a spell to make it look like it's fixed. Presumably, the image is attached to the real harp, and I guess the GM can allow this, but the fact that the spell only lasts for a minute means he was gonna get busted regardless.
Trick I used to repair the Holy Lyre. I mean, the magic I used isn't going to hold forever, you know.
Message, on the other hand, lets you telepathically talk to a creature you can see. Its enchantments let you speak for longer than 10 words, talk with the creature you've met at a longer distance, or announce to multiple creatures. Venti has actually spoken to the Traveler telepathically before, within the first hour of the game. So we don't have any wind spells yet, but luckily for us, he has another class feature, Remarkable Repertoire's Magical Secrets, which can give us 2 more spells from any spell list, not limited to Bard spells. Magical Expression can also let us change his spells to have only vocal components, when it would have had somatic components. It is now stated that all spells use somatic and vocal components, and there is no spell that uses only one or the other, or even uses material components. But whatever, we can now hold 2 weapons or objects in each hand and cast spells while handcuffed. So before we pick the 2 spells we want, let's pick a spell from the divine spell source that we can get from the Celestial Magic Ancestry tree. Did you forget? I almost did. I am picking up Cleanse. This spell lets Venti remove a condition from the list here, from a targeted creature. Because Celestial Magic lets us cast the spell with a reduced mana cost once per day, we can cure multiple conditions or cure a stronger condition from this list here. By level 5, we can spend 2 mana total to cure even more stressful conditions. The only instance Venti has of healing is in the Waterborne Poetry event and Zhao's backstory. Neither incidents are him like healing damage, just cleansing like exhaustion and karmic debt. So this is perfect. Now for the actual spells we want to get through Magical Secrets. Air Slash is the basic single target wind spell, dealing slashing damage and causing debris to be blown away. This can be akin to his charged Anemo arrow, dealing ranged wind damage. And nifty thing, most of these attacking spells have an enhancement to increase the range and damage of these spells. They cost 1 mana point and can be repeated, a range only getting repeated twice. But you can spend a mana point on this spell, and you can get 2 MP worth of enhancements. So you can increase the damage by 2, increase the range by 10, or deal +1 damage and go +5 spaces further. This spell also can force a save that inflicts bleed, which no Venti's winds can't do. And it is 1 AP too. You can do 2 stacks of bleed with 1 MP, or split it between 2 other enhancements. And then lastly, Hidden Slash is the unique spell's ability, and it costs 1 MP to just add a D10 to his attack check. Now, I should mention that in this version, attack checks have been changed to include both attacks with martial weapons and spells. So, shooting with our bow afterwards will trigger the multiple check penalty. So we can either attack with the spell or his bow, but this means that we can use utility spells on the same turn, like Gust! This spell lets us push creatures and objects, fail a might save, and they move 1 or 2 spaces. We can spend mana to push the target 2 more spaces, or target larger creatures or objects. We can even blind and deafen the target for 1 round with harsh winds. So, just to refresh, the spells he has now are Wind Blessing, Illusionary Image, Message, Hex, Cleanse, Air Slash, and Gust. There is no more room on your character sheet for cliff notes. Also new to 0.10 are spell focuses. These can be considered the same as Genshin Impact's catalysts, books and orbs that magic can channel through. Venti uses a bow, but he also has a lyre. Spell focuses have 1 property point that can give spells a little buff. But if we give it a 2-handed property, he can get 2 points and get the powerful property that boosts the damage of all spells by 1. Although I'd rather use his bow for more damage than spells. So I'm going to pick a spell-focused example, Magical Instrument. Long range will increase the range of all spells by 5 so long as the range is greater than 1. And reactive will give you or an ally that you are helping advantage in a spell duel to stop a caster from casting a spell. I guess I haven't talked about spell duels yet, some other time. As for the bow, we could go with his signature weapon, Skywood Harp, or his new signature, the Daybreak Chronicles, or his old new signature bow, which I am just now finding out about, Elegy of the End, but he can have 2 bows now, but not wielding them at the same time.
So you might have to get a little creative for dual wielding.
He needs to stay within help dice range with his allies, so we don't need it to be far ranged. We'll have 1 bow for damage and another for utility. We could go with the Great Bow, which now comes with the Cumbersome property that makes it so you have to spend 1 AP to draw, stow, or pick up this weapon, opposed to the minor action, meaning we can't switch between his lyre without having issues arise. Remember, we do have disadvantage on ranged attacks if an enemy is close up, which includes ranged spells. The other one we can get is the Short Bow, which now has the impact property on top of Silent for stealthy shots. We can easily swap between this and the lyre, no problem. Also, bards get light armor to start with. Venti is clearly not wearing any armor, but we can say that his cape gives him elemental damage reduction. Crowd Pleaser is a flavor feature that does not distract people, but instead, it gives you advantage on charisma skill checks to multiple people for 1 hour, after you do an art trade contest against their charisma save. It's functionally the charm spell, but it can be used on hostile creatures, though they have advantage on the save. And it doesn't backfire if it ends. You just don't get the actual charmed status, which can make it impossible for anyone to target you with an attack.
Thank Barbados. Wait a minute.
Venti is getting Bardic Performance. He spends 1 AP and 1 MP to perform and make a buffing aura of 10 spaces for his team, so long as they can see or hear him. Battle Ballad will grant all allies a D4 on their first attack check each round. This has changed from the previous version where you just get +1 damage. Fast Tempo increases their speed by 1. Inspiration gives them 1 temp HP at the start of their turn. It does not stack, it just refreshes if you lose it. And Emotional will give resistance against one of the following conditions you choose, i.e. advantage against checks or saves that inflict this condition. Charmed, Frightened, which includes Rattled and Intimidated, or Taunted. Additionally, if the ally has that condition, they can make a save to end it at the start of their turn. Once on each of his turns, he can spend 1 AP to change the performance to a different one. Does Venti do this in-game? Nope! But I'd say he uses the emotional one the most. However, we do have the Cleanse spell to do this too. Next, we gotta deal with our path points, or as they are renamed, Character Path Progression. This update makes it easy to know what we get if we pick a martial path or a spellcaster path. By taking the spellcaster path, Venti gains 3 maximum mana points and learns 1 spell from his spell list. By taking the martial path, he would get 1 stamina point and learn 1 maneuver. And because he's a spellcaster, he would get weapon training, meaning he would get the new martial enhancements which replace the attack maneuvers that were used to improve the basic martial attacks with our weapons or unarmed strikes. Power and Extend are now renamed to Damage and Range to be consistent with spell enhancements, And the new Dazed enhancement replaces the clunky Sweep, letting all martials threaten the concentration of spellcasters' sustained spells. There is also weapon enhancements, which replace the weapon style passives. You no longer deal +1 damage if a condition is met, you now just inflict the condition in most cases. Bows get this slow enhancement that slows down the target. He also gets the spellcaster stamina regen, where once per round, he would regain up to half of his maximum SP when he uses a spell enhancement. However, I want to take a talent to get all that martial stuff, so I can get more mana and another bard spell, like Disguise Self, a nifty little spell that Venti has been sustaining for years after getting a critical success. I kid, but I don't know what other bard spells we can get him at this level, at least. The mana spend limit is increasing next level, so that he can then keep his disguise for an hour. So the one option for a talent I am picking is Pact Boon's Pact Weapon from the Warlock. The Warlock is the class all about bargaining with all-powerful eldritch beings, like the Heavenly Principles, who I'm pretty sure Venti never met, let alone taught him archery. But this works. This feature lets you pick one weapon to be your Pact Weapon, and you can change it on a quick rest. You gain martial enhancements, including weapon enhancements, while wielding this specific weapon. I picked this talent because ranged weapons also get unlimited ammo, which every archer in Genshin just materializes arrows out of nowhere. And he can dismiss the weapon to a pocket dimension and summon it back instantly, which is also something every character in Genshin Impact can do.
But I'm not done yet!
We don't just get one maneuver with this feature, but 2 attacking maneuvers! Wow! Attack maneuvers give us offensive tools, and there's 10 of them to pick from. However, we have to consider that Venti is only using bows, and he doesn't have any stamina, which means the maneuvers have already been picked, both of which are area martial attacks against the AD of every target in the area. Piercing Shot lets him shoot through a 4-space line of foes, which is similar to his newly added Wind Sunder arrows. And Volley lets him shoot several arrows in a 2-space area diameter sphere. Oh hey, that's like the plunging attack that archers do. But if Venti did this here, he would be hurting himself. And badly. Remember, because he doesn't have stamina, he can't use maneuver enhancements to increase the damage or area of the attack.
But wait! There's more!
This pack weapon also doubles as a spell focus, with not 1, but 2 focus properties, because it's a 2-handed weapon. Or it could just have the 1 2-point focus property, Powerful. So now, he can wield his great bow and cast Air Slash, both dealing 2 base damage. We can now also make that short bow a spell focus and match the Lyre's focus properties. But we can only have one of these packed weapons at a time, and we can swap it and its spell focus properties on a quick rest. This is really helpful for hybrid builds, to the point where I think every character I make from Genshin Impact should have this talent, if there is room for it.
Didn't keep you waiting, did I?
It's level 3, Subclass time! Can we make him a Paragon Bard to get him more magical secrets or double help actions? Perhaps. But you know what would be funnier? Literally, the Jester Bard. He's willingly going to make a joke out of himself for everyone's amusement. 'Cause why not? Antagonizing Act gives him Heckle. Once per round, when a creature in Bardic Performance range fails a save, he can taunt that creature on the next attack they make, meaning they have disadvantage on their attack as long as it's not against him. He doesn't even need to cause the save to fail. If another player causes them to fall prone, he can heckle them, hopefully from far enough away to not get targeted. Distraction lets you spend 1 action point to cause a creature to fail their attack check by rolling a help dice and subtracting it from the target's result. Weirdly, this one doesn't say within Bardic Performance range, but 10 spaces. So if you aren't performing, you can still do this one, not the other. And finally, Pratfall lets you give another creature in Bardic Performance range advantage on their check if you fail a save opposed by a hostile creature. So if he does get grabbed, pushed, or burned, he can wing it like,
How rude! Ugh, that was uncalled for.
Note that hostile creatures need to hurt you. An ally can't grab you to benefit from this feature. but you can willingly fail the save if you really want to, or you can just have this as a comeback advantage. I really like how all of these sub-features are just words that the bard can just yell out as sort of reactions. Really convenient to remember. The flavor feature is Comedian. For those just listening, I'm gonna let you guess what this does. We also get some mana and another bard spell. And at this point, it would only make sense to get the spell Vicious Mockery. The single target spell uses the target's area defense and deals
emotional damage.
With the enhancements, he can taunt the target and discombobulate them.
First, discombobulate. Dazed.
Which makes them subtract a d4 from their check. If you use the enhancement and they fail, you can heckle them and taunt them for free. So they get even worse accuracy. It's even more brutal if you roll a nat 20. At this level, we get those Ancestry traits, mana increase, and angelic insight, along with path progression and a talent. Okay, what else is on the bard spell list? Absorb elements. Ooh. When you take elemental damage, you can make a spell check to gain a resistance to that damage type. You can then spend more action points to get more resistance, or 1 mana point to add 2 damage of that element to your next attack. That's the swirl reaction, kind of. We just need to be afflicted by the elemental attack, and then use air slash or a bow shot. The real swirl reaction would cause like a creature afflicted by an element to be the center point of an area attack that deals that elemental damage and spreads it around. If a creature is burning, fire damage. If a creature is slowed due to the ice spell, cold damage, etc. This is like the hypothetical thing if I were to do a homebrew thing, but whatever. But as for the talent, we still haven't gotten any spells that represent Venti. If only we had more wind spells. Oh wait, expanded repertoire is available to get right now. That way we can get 2 more wind spells. And then what? We can't get any more after this level, aside from Fly. The Clerk Order's Magical Domain can add that, but then we have to pick another domain, and we only get 1 spell out of that. I guess 2 if we didn't pick Absorb Elements from the path progression. Oh Lord, please, give me a sign! The patch notes. Oh my god. They buffed the general talents! These were so much worse than the multi-class talent, but now, 2 attribute points, 4 skill points that you can convert into trade points, 4 ancestry trait points, and the expanded talents. We will talk about the martial expansion later, but spell casting expansion? It used to give us 1 spell, and now it gives you spell focuses if you don't already have it, and you get to pick 1 spell source or 3 spell schools and just add them to your spell list. If you are playing a full campaign, being a wizard with clerk or druid spells is incredible. For bards though, you already have the School of Enchantment and technically also Divination because there's only 2 spells and they both have the Emboldened spell tag. Anyway, I had to pick the School of Elementals for the wind spells, and we might as well pick Invocation, which is where all the divine exclusive spells are. And then Astrology for 1 spell in particular. Shh. Of course, this talent doesn't actually have you learn every spell, but it does let you learn 3 spells from your newly expanded spell list. Expanded repertoire is in shambles. Oh, but I give you 2 skill points and the other magical expression.
That's okay. You can keep it.
So now, what 3 spells can we learn to complete this kit? Windburst is our best representation of his elemental skill, Skyward Sonnet, when you tap it. You create a 2 diameter sphere area within range that will deal 1 slashing damage. We can, again, cause bleed, but also spend 2 MP to move the target to an unoccupied space within the area. That's close to knocking them prone. Tornado is our second version of his elemental skill when you hold it. This spell makes a cylinder of swirling wind. Creatures in the area are slowed by 2, blinded, and fully concealed. Creatures also make a might save or get pushed one space horizontally in a random direction. He can then spend 2 more MP to pull creatures upwards 3 spaces, but he needs to be level 5 for that. And I guess if you cast it on your own space, you can also get sent skyward too. The issue is that this spell is supposed to be sustained. Venti's spell does last a while after casting, but then it gives you an air current that allows you to glide. This is closer to the Animo Traveler's burst. But for his burst, Wind's Grand Ode from the School of Astronomy, Gravity Sinkhole. He makes a 3-space sphere that will be his Storm Eye. It will pull creatures to the center with a might save versus his spell check. He can then get the Lingering enhancement to sustain the spell for 1 minute, and the creatures inside need to make a save against his save DC or get pulled in 1 space. We could have gotten this spell with his first Remarkable Repertoire, but we had to wait till level 3 for the Lingering part. We will need to be at level 9 for this to be the Black Hole spell that will restrain creatures in the center, making them more vulnerable to your allies' attacks. Or we can get Area, Stronger Pull, or Greater Lingering to group everyone together. It's perfect! So here's our Venti build. A Jester Bard with wind spells, bow proficiency, team buffing, enemy debuffing, and crowd control. Well, that was fun, and it only took us half an hour. The nation of Liwei's health, fortune, and beauty is sought after in this era and many more before then. It was through strong order and commitment to contracts that both humans and gods could coexist and strengthen each other. These mortals were taught by the god of contracts and commerce, Rex Lapis, the Geo-Archon. It was he who modeled the mountains of Liyue and defended it during the Archon War. It was he who minted Mora, Teyvat's magical currency, in the Golden House. It is once a year during the Rite of Dissension that Rex Lapis graces his nation with prophecy and economic guidance. And he's dead. Meanwhile, Wangshang Funeral Parlor's mysterious consultant, Zhongli, looks over the traditional customs necessary for dealing with their oldest customers, the Adeptus, the gods that take form of beasts. It is unknown as to how he knows these ancient secrets or why he doesn't have a Mora to his name. He also has a theory. Perhaps, if Rex Lapis was still alive today, he would take a page from the Animal Archon and let his subjects solve their own problems, while he retires in peace. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, Zhongli is Rex Lapis's alter ego, and that death was highly exaggerated. This man's history in Genshin is so long-spanning, both in-game and out. While Venti and 6 other characters were the first to get buffs in years, Zhongli was the first ever to get buffed, and it was in the very next update after his release, because the backlash from the Chinese players just drove him to power creep him. Did I mention Hoyo is based in China, and that Liyue is the Chinese theme place? I am of the opinion that he, Liyue, all its residents, and the yearly Lantern Rite event are responsible for Hoyo being able to break those aforementioned CCP laws. Zhongli is the god of contracts, after all.
A new contract. Okay.
We'll start with attributes this time. Zhongli is very charismatic and intelligent. We can max those 2 stats out and make his agility his dump stat, followed by his might. We will bump up his might by 1 at level 3. Then we'll give him awareness, athletics, intimidation, influence, investigation, survival, and then leave insight for level 3. We will then convert 2 skill points into other trades so that we can get history, because he lives for thousands of years. Religion, which is for dealing with Adeptus. Occult. The Funeral Parlor has a surprising tie to the underworld. Nature. By his hands he has molded it. And Masonry, because he's good with making stone pillars. Then there's Illustrator and Theater, both of which will cover poetry, calligraphied, and live recitals, which he is a fan of, but not a practitioner. And Brewing. will be left for level 3. Again, not someone who makes wine, but he uses it in his rituals, and so he must be a concierge.
Osmanthus wine tastes the same as I remember. But where are those who share the memory?
Yes, this is the 3rd time you've said that today. For Ancestries, he is a dragon and a god of the earth. I can make him dragonborn, but he never breathes laser beams, and earth is not a damage type we can pick. But since Geo is golden, we can say that his draconic origin is radiant damage. So we can give him radiant resistance, just like Venti. Or we can give him draconic ward instead. This will give him temp HP when he reaches 0 HP, and when a creature hits him with a melee attack, the creature will take 1 radiant damage. We can also give him thick skin to increase his AD and mana increase, because we will be picking some spells for him. But as for his second ancestry, I hope none of you mind if I take the Terraborn. This is an ancestry that lets you be a sentient rock person, and it is available in DC20's magazines. It will be included in the full release of the game, but you can get it now with the link below. If you don't have it, I guess you can't fact check me. We're going to give him natural armor, which gives him physical damage reduction, even if he has armor on. The Beastborn has a similar trait, but requires you to not only have no armor, but then take the thick skin trait first. I assume it's balanced this way because of the opportunity cost of picking Terraborn over having natural weapons or the ability to fly that comes from being a Beastborn. Terraborn also have elemental damage reduction as well if you wanted it. At level 4, we will get Resilient Form from the Terraborn. This will give him advantage on saves against being impaired, petrified, and transformed against his will. He's the one doing the petrifying. Lastly, he's getting Terraborn's minor trait, which lets him use his bare hands as sculpting tools or masonry tools to shape soil, sand, stone, or rock. He also uses his prime modifier on these checks. Okay, you have likely been waiting with dying breath to see what class to make him. Did we make him a spellcaster? Do we have enough spells worth picking? What class features can we use to get his abilities? Well, I'm picking Barbarian. In fact, Elemental Fury Barbarian. Yes, I did just make an Elemental Fury Barbarian last video, but this is different, because it's 0.10, and we have enough choices to make Zhongli completely unique. I mean, we're already using Terraborn, and those attributes can't be farther from a normal Barbarian. You might now be thinking, but how does Zhongli here have Rage, the Barbarian's signature feature? We know from the lore that Zhao has moved mountains and defeated monsters with giant spears, among other terrifying things. So let's say he only uses his strength to fulfill a contract, or when the contract is breached. Rage would give him +1 damage on melee attacks. You can think of this as saving action points that you would have spent for the power maneuver. He also gets advantage on might saves. Helpful. He gets physical and elemental resistance, which does not stack with physical damage reduction. So if he's not raging and gets hit, but not heavy hit by a physical attack, only then would he take half damage. While raging, it's halved all the time, including instances of instant damage, like a collision. Of course, his PD is reduced by 5, so it doesn't matter. We can find a way to increase his PD or inflict disadvantage on attacks, but otherwise, half damage is great, and he will regain stamina this way. Of course, with Berserker, his AD is increased by 2 if he has no armor, which that suit is not armored, so those hits are more likely to do 0 damage. He's also getting +1 speed, now with no condition for being armorless, might-based jump distance, and he can move 2 spaces with the attack action. And of course, Shatter Force is a guaranteed critical hit on any inanimate objects. Need I say more? Time for weapons. We gotta give him his signature weapon, Black Tassel. This is just the best weapon according to meta. His signature is actually Vortex Vanquisher. The properties of this weapon doesn't really matter here, it's just a pike. But we can still give him Black Tassel as an alternative lance, with Guard and Impact replacing the heavy property. And we'll throw in a Javelin for the throwing weapon instead of a spear. Because the other 2 weapons have reach, Berserker gives you 2 movement when attacking, and thrown melee attacks don't get Rage's +1 damage. So I am incentivized to use the move action to go 6 spaces. If I can't move, I want to ensure I can hit any creature. By the way, all of these weapons have the slow weapon maneuver. Just like Venti, we are slowing down all the baddies to a crawl. Now for maneuvers. Martial classes start with 2 maneuvers, likely because their weapon and martial enhancements together could count as at least 3 spells. I have several maneuvers, and you can pick which one you want in a different order. But first, I will pick Cleave. This is just an area martial attack against the AD of creatures within a 1-space arch centered on you. The nifty thing is that using a weapon with the reach property can let him move the point of origin 1 space away, so your arch is going to look like this. He then must spend 2 SP to increase the damage or the arc's radius, because there's a potential of hitting at least 2 creatures and doubling the damage. However, he cannot use this enhancement till level 3, because there's a new stamina spend limit too, and it matches the mana spend limit. This also applies to attack enhancements. You can use all your action points, but you can only use 1 stamina point. But don't worry, there is also the Careful Cleave enhancement, which costs 1 SP and lets you pick a target in the area to avoid the attack, so your allies don't get hurt. Just, let me see here. Yeah, this is the only maneuver with this enhancement, so be careful with the other ones. Next, I said that I had to find a way to increase the PD, and here it is. It's back, and it's still a reaction to add 5 PD against an attack targeting you, but it now requires you to have a melee weapon or a shield to parry the attack targeting a creature next to you. You can then spend 1 SP to make the next attack against the target have disadvantage in case they wanted to try that again, or disarm the attacker's melee weapon. With a big enough fail on their physical save, they will drop the weapon from their hand and into yours. This is how Zhongli is going to be protecting his allies at this level. You can also taunt as a universal action to try and get 1 creature to attack him instead. I don't know what Zhao would say to taunt though.
You reeks of wine, drunkard. You're slurring a little. I'll brew a pot of sobering tea. It'll be ready in only 6 hours.
At level 2, Zhongli is getting Battle Cry. You can use this to buff himself and his allies' speed, damage, or defense. And yeah, all he's going to be doing is defense. This gives resistance 1 to himself and allies to the next immediate attack they take. You don't need to know what damage type it is, they will just take less damage. This does stack with his other defense bonuses, but is not as efficient as parry. You would rather use this on the whole team. You unfortunately can't use this as a reaction, and it ends after 1 round. So to use this shield more efficiently, you need to get a steady supply of stamina, which means triggering his stamina regen, which requires him to deal heavy hits, which requires him to use more action points for advantage, or getting heavy hit, which we can't guarantee that he'll be targeted over the squishies he's protecting. Oh man, if only there was a way to get instant stamina! Oh lord, please give me a sign! Okay, we've done that before. Martial Expansion gives you training in weapons, armor, and shields, and even the heavy ones if your class doesn't have it. It also teaches you 2 maneuvers and gives you an extra stamina regen from another class, including the Spellcaster stamina. You can still only trigger these once per round, so if I'm going to stand around and do some defensive maneuvers and let my allies fight, I might as well use that for my infinite stamina generator. The Champion Stamina regen triggers when you use a maneuver. Any maneuver. So we can do parry or cleave and get it right back. If he had 3 stamina points, he would have regained 2 stamina because we rounded up. So that would fix it. We still get 2 maneuvers, and I am picking Path Carver to match his charged attack. He makes a 1-space line attack and can move anywhere in the area without provoking an opportunity attack afterwards. This can be a running charge, a magically extending pole arm, or the old teleports behind you, nothing personnel, kid technique. Zhongli does this. Epic. This maneuver is also affected by reach weapons, so while the space in front of him isn't affected, he can attack and teleport 1 space farther. Epic. He can then spend more SP to increase the length of the line by 2, or increase the damage by 2, or push the targets out of the way. Epic! Oh, but we're still waiting for the next level to do that. Oh hey, remember when I said he can taunt creatures with that universal action? Introducing Heroic Taunt! With this, he can spend 1 stamina to enhance his taunt, and then it counts as a maneuver, triggering his stamina regen. Here are the enhancements. His taunt can last for a minute rather than 1 round, but it will require him to spend 1 AP at the start of his turn to sustain it, and the creature makes a save to beat your save DC. He can increase the range of the taunt beyond 10 spaces, he can reduce the damage the taunted creature deals by half, and this one is good for facing those solo bosses. And finally, he can taunt all creatures in range, doubling the enhancement cost, excluding sustain, in the process. This one is good for hordes of monsters. I'd say this maneuver has more value than Battlecry in some cases, but you need to succeed at an influence check. I guess nothing's stopping you from doing both. Extra epic protection.
How about spells?
Oh right, he should have spells. By taking the spellcaster path, he will gain spell focus training, but without a spell focus, he needs to wait for the GM to dangle them like keys as a reward. He then gets 3 mana, and if you remember, he has 1 mana from his traits. Then we gotta pick a spell list from the other classes. Though if we are only picking 1 spell now, 1 spell at level 4, and then ending the build here, I guess it doesn't really matter which we pick. 1 spell that I wanted was the Elemental Shield spell, which is flavor-wise comparable to the Crystallization reaction in Genshin, where a Geo attack against a target affected by an element will drop a crystal that, when picked up, grants a shield that will absorb damage like temp HP, and has increased resistance to the corresponding element. This spell will give you temp HP after a spell check, but instead of giving resistance, it deals damage to an attack while you have that HP. This is similar to Draconic Ward's trait that Zhongli has, including the fact that only he can benefit from it. Yeah, this spell can only be used on himself, but it lasts for an hour. There is an enhancement that will give you resistance and even immunity, but we aren't getting to level 5 and 9 respectively. Overall, this spell is better for Pyro, Cryo, and Electro characters that make their own shields rather than Geo characters. So instead, I am picking Mage Armor. This spell magically protects an ally, giving them +2 AD for a full hour. The Jade Shield Zhongli gives lasts for 20 seconds and is applied to the active character. It also absorbs damage like temp HP, gives res against everything, and lowers the res of nearby opponents. So this spell doesn't do all of that, but for now, he can give it to himself and 3 of his allies to boost their AD for an hour, spending all his AP and MP in the process. He can then use Battlecry or Heroic Taunt for the rest of combat.
Every journey has its final day. Don't rush.
Level 3 subclass time, and I already spoiled this. We are picking Elemental Fury Barbarian with the physical damage type. To keep it brief, he gains a 2-space aura of Fury, which gives him the following benefits. If a creature in his aura hits him with an attack, they take Elemental Fury damage, which in this case can be piercing, slashing, or bludgeoning damage, depending on which he chooses in that instinct. He can then spend 1 action point and 1 stamina point to make a burst of Elemental Fury damage in his radius, hitting all foes or just one of them with 3 times the damage, again picking a physical damage type. On top of that, he can pick 1 extra effect for his aura. Stunning Aura is the closest we're going to get to Petrification from his ult at this level. He needs to be enraged to get this elemental stuff, so if you're focused on spells or taunts, there's no need for this. But it would be a waste not to use this feature in battle. He also gets 1 more stamina, meaning he can recover 2 stamina with his regen ability, and another maneuver. I'm picking
Meteor Strike!
This attack is the new Heroic Leap, and is supposed to represent the plunging attack with some extra height, as if you had Shin Yu on your team. You jump before making an attack against an opponent within jump distance range. Zhongli has a jump distance of 1, and this will boost it by 2, so that's 3 spaces or 15 feet of movement to leap across a gap or difficult terrain. Or you can jump upwards 3 feet. That is on average with Olympic athletes, and it's only going to get higher with level ups. Unfortunately, the ground pound shockwave didn't return, and you can't add your fall damage to your attack. But there is Impact Crater that causes all creatures to fall prone where you land. It doesn't hurt them though. There's also a new feature that lets you spend 1 additional stamina point to do this maneuver as a reaction when a creature is forced into the air within jump distance to attack them. You can then take an additional enhancement to slam them down into the ground, potentially doing collision damage on top of fall damage. I guess Venti could launch them up for him, but again, level 5.
I will have order!
At level 4, we get a new Ancestry trait, another path progression, and another talent. For our talent, we're going to double down on the infinite stamina taunt and battle cry machine with Master at Arms, a feature from the champion. With a quick swap, we can change from our 3 pole arms whenever we need more PD or ranged attacks. With Maneuver Master, we can learn another maneuver, and now, once per combat, we can reduce the stamina cost of a maneuver by 1. That's a free Sustain Taunt, a free Careful Cleave, or a free Path Carver or Meteor Strike. You can then save those stamina for his class features. As for the new maneuver, Resolve can give him temp HP after a martial check. Remember that you can spend an action point to give yourself advantage on the check, or spend SP to increase it directly. This will function like the Elemental Shield spell, just without the resistance or retaliation damage. Which, now that I think about it, he already has those things in his class features. We should still get 1 more spell from the path progression, just so that we have 3 more mana. But it is this time that I must confess, the reason I didn't get a talent that would have given him more spells like Sorcerer's Innate Power is because there isn't a spell that really fits his kit. There isn't a spell that spawns a Pillar of Rock. There isn't a spell that drops a meteor. There isn't even a spell that petrifies people, even if it would have cost 6 mana. So despite us having Elemental Fury to do all the earth attacks, I'll still pick 1 earth spell out of the 4 available. Earth Blessing, similar to Wind Blessing, gives us Tremor Sense, and we will ignore difficult terrain. That might actually be good, but we'll save it for another level. Then there's Spike Bolt and Spike Surge, which both double as the plant spells. Spike Bolt could replace our Javelin for ranged attacks, while Spike Surge is basically Cleave. And with 1 more mana point enhancement, it can become Elemental Fury Burst. So we don't need it. And then there's Eruption. This is a 2-space sphere area attack where the earth bursts open, dealing bludgeoning damage. So while Zhongli uses Domain Lapidus, there is an initial damage in an area upon casting. And Planet Be Full is a sphere attack that deals bludgeoning damage. There is an enhancement for Eruption that launches foes upwards by 1 space for every MP you put into it. So, stick with me. 2 action points plus 1 mana point on Eruption on at least 1 creature next to him. They fail the save and Stunning Aura occurs. He then uses 1 AP and 2 SP on Meteor Strike to attack the airborne target and slam them back into the ground 1 space down, with an extra 1 collision damage. He didn't need to spend the extra SP to make it a reaction, because it's still his turn. One issue is that he can only jump up 3 feet and not 1 space. But to that I say, his weapon has reach. So yeah, Eruption is the closest we're going to get to his skill and burst. By picking it, we are locked out of the Clerk, Druid, and Wizard spell lists, because Mage Armor and it are on different spell sources. So Warlock, pick 3 spell schools, Elemental and Conjuring and Transmutation, because that one has Earth Blessing. And that's our Zhongli build, a backseat barbarian with tanking and defense support, whether he's enraged or not. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this build is not meta, but it is working as intended. Okay, our next stop is Inazuma, but we can't go there because you aren't Adventurer rank 30 yet. You better start opening chests and completing quests. I guess we're making this a 2-parter again. I was planning these 4 builds before the update, so I really didn't expect the changes I made with Venti needing more spells from other classes, and Zhongli using maneuvers more than spells. Thanks to Dungeon Coach for not sponsoring this video, but for giving me an affiliate link. Oh, right, you should check that link if you don't have the game yet, and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Liking and commenting would also be nice, and I'll see you guys next time.